today we're digging into the absolutely shocking true story of the Opium Wars. This is a wild one, a time when a global superpower literally ran a government-backed drug operation just to force open another country's economy. And it really all boils down to this one kind of crazy question. How on earth did a simple trade problem, a trade deficit, completely spiral out of control and lead to one of the most immoral wars in modern history? All because of one single addictive product. All right, so let's set the stage here. To really get what's going on, you have to rewind to the early 1800s. The whole global economy was, let's just say, lopsided. You had two massive empires with completely opposite problems. So, on one side, you have China. And in the 1800s, they were a powerhouse. I mean, totally self-sufficient, way ahead in technology, and frankly, they couldn't care less about anything the West was trying to sell them. Then, on the other side, you've got Britain. And they were absolutely desperate for Chinese goods. We're talking tea, silk, porcelain, the works. The problem was they had nothing China wanted back. This created a huge, massive trade deficit. And Britain's silver was just pouring out of the country at a terrifying rate. Britain was basically hemorrhaging money. They had to find something, anything that the Chinese would buy. And the solution they landed on, well, it was devastatingly effective and just morally catastrophic. So Britain is desperately searching for a way to balance the books. And they find an answer that would end up plunging an entire nation into addiction and absolute chaos. And that solution? It was opium. Yep, a super addictive narcotic that was grown in British-controlled India. The plan was simple. Smuggle it into China, get a huge portion of the population hooked, and finally reverse that flow of silver. And look, this wasn't just a handful of shady traders doing their own thing. No. As the history shows, this was a systematic, government-backed drug operation. The scale was just unprecedented. So here's the bottom line. Britain essentially created the biggest drug cartel in history. And the goal wasn't just about making money. It was about using addiction as a weapon to violently pry open China's markets, which had been closed for centuries. So as you can imagine, with millions getting addicted, the Chinese empire started to crumble from the inside. The emperor knew something had to be done. So let's take a look at how China tried to fight back against this state-sponsored drug epidemic. The emperor chose this guy named Lin Zexu. He made him an imperial commissioner and basically sent him to the main port city of Canton with a single mission: stop the opium trade, no matter what it takes. And Commissioner Lin did not mess around. He got there and acted immediately. He blockaded the foreign traders inside their own warehouses, demanded they hand over every last bit of opium they had, and then, in this huge public spectacle, he destroyed it all. And we are talking about an incredible amount of product here. This wasn't some small drug bust. Commissioner Lin seized and destroyed over 20,000 chests of British opium. That was an absolute fortune back then. But this incredible act of defiance, well, it wasn't going to be ignored. In fact, this one bold move to save his country ended up leading directly to war and just unimaginable consequences for China. So how did Britain respond to having its product destroyed? It declared war. I mean, just let that sink in for a moment. The British Empire launched a full-scale military invasion of another country to protect its right to sell drugs to that country's people. It's just staggering. The war itself was brutal, but the chaos that came after was even worse. The conflict completely destabilized China's Qing dynasty, which led to these huge internal rebellions and years of turmoil. Some estimates put the number of lives lost in all that chaos as high as 30 million people. And this is why the Opium Wars are such a big deal in modern history. For China, this is the starting gun for what they call the Century of Humiliation, a really painful era of being dominated by foreign powers. And honestly, it still shapes the country's worldview today. But hold on, there's one last piece to this puzzle that shows a level of hypocrisy that is just almost hard to believe. It really highlights the double standard that was at the heart of the British Empire. Okay, get this. At the exact same time that Britain was using its navy to force opium on the Chinese, back home in Britain, the drug was seen as a moral and social evil. It was strictly condemned. Its use was discouraged because it destroyed families and communities. But abroad? Oh, abroad it was a tool of foreign policy, a product whose sale was enforced with warships. You know, the story of the Opium Wars leaves us with this really important and frankly timeless question. It's a powerful reminder of what can happen when profit and economic interests just completely steamroll basic human morality. It forces us all to ask, what happens when trade becomes a weapon?